It's going to be a candid discussion for today's webinar. And these are the things we want to look at, the numbers, and also look at how well we're doing in terms of deployment on the continent. So 6.13%, that's the average IPv6 capability of the African continent as of today. A figure that actually you can verify yourself on public sources before you leave this call. Welcome to today's webinar, which is Don't Get Left Behind inside the African Government IPv6 Accelerator. It's something we're all familiar with. In 2008, the ITU member states, which is to say, your government, my government, sat down at the World Telecommunications Standardization Assembly in Johannesburg and adopted a resolution, which is most popularly called the Resolution 64. It's about the IPv6 address allocation and encouraging the deployment of IPv6. That resolution has been revised almost 3 times since in Dubai 2012, in Amamet in 2016, and the recent one was in Geneva in Switzerland, that's in 2022. Every African country that holds the ITU membership signed that resolution. Your minister, my minister, and the person also is signed on. For context, the global average is now around half, which is around maybe 40, going to about 43 up to 47%. And France is past 70%. We're looking at India, which is up there too, one of the highest in the world. And the United States is also set their own federal agencies to as a target of 80% only by the end of 2025. I doubt if they were able to meet up to that particular target. And obviously every country on this planet are still pushing in on the implementation or the pushing in on the implementation of IPv6. And which also tells us how seriously the world's largest economies take this transition. Like I said, Africa is at 6.13%. And here's the data that should stop every person on this call. If you look at it, most of these 6.13% are mostly not delivered by African networks. Maybe some are small, they share some IPv6 capability we do see on the continent, and also some are on the borrowed infrastructure, which we currently don't own, and terminals we don't control. Issue is, this is not a technical problem. This is a sovereignty problem. And it's one of the reasons why in AFRINIC, capacity being to be precise, why we started the African Government IPv6 Accelerator. So, good morning and good afternoon, depending on where you're joining us from. Put the name of the document that says, we recognize the urgency of IPv6 deployment and we commit to facilitating it with a particular emphasis on developing and least developed countries. When we have this conversation today, I want us to be honest about where it sits now. This is not AFRINIC asking African governments to do something new. This is AFRINIC asking the African governments to deliver on something they have already committed to 3 times. The most recent one is about, that's the 2022 one in Geneva. Also, I want to give you one image that to hold on to for the next 40 minutes. And it's about the sovereignty on the internet is not a slogan. It's a routing table. It's about who announces your prefixes. It's who issues your addresses. It's whose standards your networks have to follow in order to be reachable. And it's whose procurement specification we're looking at determining which African companies get to bid on which international standards. So for the last 20 years, those answers have been written somewhere else. So that's why we have this Government Accelerator program to help to restart or to revisit this. So let me properly introduce myself. My name is Adebowale. Aduloju. I'm the Senior Learning Experience Designer. And also I have my colleagues on call. I have Mukom, who is currently the head of capacity building, I have Willie is my DO engineer. That is the deployment engineer. That is gentleman we work up to in terms of deploying IPv6. So I'm very sure a lot of us actually know who Willie is. Also have my lady, Emma. She's our learning analyst. She's also our training coordinator. Lastly, we have a gentleman called Bashir, who is in charge of the certification. So that's my colleagues that are on the call. What are the things that we need to look at? And these are the things that I'm promising you for the next 40 minutes. So by the time we get to the Q&A, you these are the first, most three important things that we will look at, we would have touched based on. So firstly, where your country stands in terms of V6 today, not in theory. We will look it up together on this live session, and also the public sources the whole world currently uses. And separately, exactly how to find out where your ministries, your departments, your agencies sit on the readiness ladder, country eligibility, institutional readiness, two different measurements. So by building 40, you'll be able to understand both. And you will know that AFRINIC has built a deeper instrument, that is the V6 monitor, which I will show you during this call, that we put in hands of our countries to help them to track to the granularity that actually matters to them. Secondly, exactly what the accelerator does and exactly what the NDA, that is the NDA, which is the ministry departments and also the agencies, gets from it. Not in marketing language, in terms of the delivery times, so what we send, what you do, and what changes. And thirdly, one of the things that we need to, what you're going to do on Monday morning, that will be next week Monday, not a vague get in touch type of thing, a specific sequenced set of 3 steps. The first one will take mostly just around maybe 5 minutes for us to touch base on. So let us begin with the honest conversation, which is with the mirror. I'm not going to show you a slide full of numbers and also ask you to trust me. I'm going to show you where to look using the sources the entire internet currently use. That is the measurement tools that are being used currently on the internet, which are mostly free. But we'll also demonstrate where we're coming from. That is, we can use Mauritius as a case study for demonstration. But while on the call, maybe you can quickly open a tab on the side. Then one of my colleagues will drop in those links for us to be able to do a quick measurement. So the number one is we use the Google. So currently when I searched online, let me open a new tab if you can clearly see my screen. So if we could be able to zoom in and see where Mauritius currently is, which is about 1.24, that's about 1.14%. Oh, it has even dropped. It was 1.24 while I was creating the slide. Now here we are, it's already dropped to 1.14%. So this is the correct traffic between able to see where Mauritius is currently is in terms of IPv6 adoption on the continent. You can also do the same. You can also do the same to quickly search for your own country on the Google paths. So let me use the other one, which is the second one, which is the AFRINIC. Currently, for the Mauritius one, it's about 0.12%. If I could check on, we go to Africa and see where Mauritius currently sits. So Mauritius is around. Okay, so in terms of capability, you're looking at about 0.11%, which has actually dropped from, that's at 0.12%. That's just the stats in terms of we looking at the live data to see where we currently sit in Mauritius. So you can also do the same for your country. So here's the pattern that I want us to actually really look at, especially when to watch out or look out for in terms of your country. In most of the African economy, both numbers are literally low, and they are low together, low deployment, low capability as they move as one. The truth is, and where does the country shows the number that looks surprisingly high might be, before we celebrate in much, is that the visible IPv6 that does exist currently is mostly delivered by, let's say, Safaricom and GVA, and both turn IPv6 on, by default. So a fractional number often is not a measure of your ministry's routing V6 or your national operators deploying dual stack. So that's the uncomfortable center of the old briefing. Access is not the same as deployment in reality, and deployment is the thing sovereignty actually depends on. So now, like I mentioned, I want us to do yours. If you have about spare minutes on the side, you can quickly open the tab on the side and actually just go through your own country data to see where you currently sit. We asked several MDAs a question about readiness, and one of my colleagues also sent an email that for you to be able to do your quick readiness score check before we join this webinar. So now I want to switch from the external measurement to something more comfortable, that is the self-reporting. Over the past months, we have invited African ministries, departments, and agencies to complete a structured self-assessment of their IPv6 readiness. Not their country's traffic, their own institution itself, their own people, their own networks, and their own plans. So the assessment scores them across 6 dimensions of readiness, which cut across leadership, awareness, technical capacity, planning maturity, infrastructure readiness, vendor relationships, and also deployment activities. And place them in one of the 6 tiers, which from tier 1, which is the dysfunctional and meaning, which means that no awareness, no plan, no capacity, through the tier 6, which is the deployment ready. So if we look at the data, we'll see that out of the 33 that we did, 16 of the MDAs are on the tier 1 level, which is the dysfunctional level. 11 are on resistant dominance. 4 are awareness building. Then the rest are not moving at all. So that's the planning, active, the pilots, and also deployment ready are mostly zeros. 27 out of 33 MDAs that have looked themselves in the mirror and scored their own readiness, 27 of them are in the bottom 2 tiers. Not in the middle of the curve, in the bottom 2. Which gives us that capability is not deployment, as I said earlier. And here's the part of this data that I want every manager and every engineer in this room to actually take away. A few minutes ago, we looked up in the live deployment and also capability numbers. That's from Google, from AFRINIC, or wherever you're measuring from. Some of the countries in this very self-assessment data set have national capability numbers that look respectable on the public sources. And yet, their MDAs scoring their own readiness sit in the bottom tiers and nearly everyone else. That tells us something important, that the country level capability and the institutional deployments are not the same thing. A country can have IPv6 reaching its citizens through different access and still have domains that cannot route their own traffic over it. The visible national number can flatter you, obviously. The institution behind it can be completely unprepared. The opposite is also true. A country can score low on the public sources today, and one ministry, that is just one ministry or one department or one agency, with the right program, moves first, gets engineered certified, writes down their action plan, and pulls the rest of the country behind it. So that's where the gap, we want to try to fill the gap, which is the Government Accelerator program, to build this to help filling the gap we're discussing today. And so what's this program all about? So the program is a structured country-level delivery program that we've moved together that takes the ministry, the department, or the agencies from where they are today, wherever that is, to the point where they can plan, certify, and execute IPv6 deployments on their own network, independently, repeatably, without depending on AFRINIC after we leave. That is, as I mentioned, we're able to certify your engineers, we're able to put your engineers up to the par where they can easily deploy V6 on their own without any further dependence. So What are these 6 dimensions that we spoke about earlier on? So underneath this program that we created is a framework, and the same 6 dimensions that you saw in the last few slides. So we measure where you start. We design the cohorts around specific gaps where we measure where you start and also again at the end. So the program is, in real sense, the bridge between tier 1 and also tier 6. Like I mentioned the other time, is for us to be able to close that gap. Earlier on, I promised us that we developed a tool in-house within AFRINIC, which is called the V6 Monitor. Thanks to Willie for coming up with that. We really appreciate your effort on that. So this is where I have to come back to a tool that we spoke about earlier, which is the V6 Monitor. If we remember the live lookup we did at the start, which is between the Google and AFRINIC, those are the country level numbers. They're useful and also blunt, but they tell you the nation, but they don't tell you which of your government domains resolve over V6, which is why your ministry mail servers are reachable, or which of your public services would survive IPv4 exhaustion. So we built this just to monitor the IPv6 and also the DNSSEC deployment down to the level of the government and also the institutional domains. So it is far more granular than anything on the public dashboards or you can see out there today, because we built it specifically for this program. And here's the important part. The part that reflects how seriously we take this is we do not just hand over this monitor to anyone. We have to come in, we start the program, and then we can then show you where you track. So it's one of the things you get for being serious enough to be in the cohorts. So the V6 Monitor is how you and I watch both of the government domains lit up one after the other in a close real time. So it also surfaces something most ministries never checked, which is SEC. So we also added that feature into it to be able to track the DNSSEC. So DNSSEC is a protocol that lets citizens browser cryptographically verify the government's website. They're talking to the real one and not the impostor. So we're able to track that part on the V6 Monitor. When that tracks the V6 progress, also exposes a security gap most ministries or departments did not know they had. So same root cause, same program, closes both parts. So we'll be able to use the V6 Monitor to be able to monitor all this progress. One of my colleagues just dropped in the link. So while we're on the call, we can actually just check it through and see how we are currently performing in terms of your country level. You can see it's more detailed. I will show you how it looks like later. As we mentioned earlier, the accelerator program has 2 stages. Stage 1 is we prepare, and stage 2 is we deliver. So for stage 1, where we prepare, I'm very sure a lot of us are actually familiar with this, where we certify the people who will do the actual work, which are the engineers. So the target for any cohort country are explicit. And I want to give you the numbers. At least 35 internet engineers will get certified. That is the minimum that we put into the program. And at least 2 IPv6 program managers also get certified during this. We call it the kickoff. That is the prepared stage. So the delivery mechanism for stage 1 is what we call the IPv6 Launch Summit. It's an in-person event where the engineering certification track and also we have the management certification track, they all run in parallel. So the outputs of stage 1 are 3 things you can count on. And the 3 things you can report to your Director General or your ministers today. So number 1, the number of certified managers, the number of certified engineers, and the number of validated IPv6 action plans that the managers actually worked on, written by the managers by themselves, cover the network operators in scope for that particular cohort. So stage number 2 is which is the deployathon. So in stage number 2, the engineers and the managers we've trained and get certified to get work delivering those validated action plans. The cadence is about a 6-week sprint. So each sprint is a defined block of milestone work with measurable outputs at the end. The delivery mechanism for stage 2 is the in-person, which we popularly call the deployathon, where the engineers come together in a room and the AFRINIC expert, which is Willie, to work directly on the milestone of their action plans. Alongside with the deployment, we also have something called the Deployment Help Desk, which also provides the ongoing support. So if you need support anytime, anything in terms of your implementation of V6, that's already on auto. It's running automatically, so you can quickly hop on the help desk call and willingly put you through on the things you're requesting for. So it's like a scheduled one-on-one call that carries the sprint walk forward between deployers. The help desk is not a delivery mechanism. The deployer is. The help desk is the operational scaffolding around the whole program. So that's for the 2 stages that we discussed about. So this program has a beginning and also it has an end. We've deliberately not built this as a year-long consulting engagement. It's a program. It has beginning, like I mentioned, and also it has an end. And by the end, your team is the one doing the actual work and not us. We are just meant to kickstart it, and then we can then hand over the whole expertise and code for your team to continue with. Part of the stage 1 into more details is where we call the kickoff. The kickoff is an in-country, in-person event, 3 to 5 days max. That's the moment where your ministries, department, or your agencies officially enters the accelerator program. And our team comes to you. 2 things will happen in parallel. So, number 1, in one room, your engineers go through the statistics program, which is being handled by Bashir. Sits, run you through the whole program. And then the other room, which is the IPv6 for managers, that's where we have the ICT directors, the CIOs, the managers. They also go through the certified IPv6 program. 2 tracks, same kickoff. So for the engineering track, it's pretty much simple. I know some of us are actually aware about this. The statistics is an hands-on technical training certification, and it rewards preparation. So before the certification event, your engineers complete the IPv6 courses online. You go first of all to the Learn.AFRINIC Academy. You complete the courses there. That's where the foundational things happen. Then thereafter, the certification event itself, it's on-site and it's focused. It's mostly around revision, lab exercises on real network topologies, and also the intensive preparation to get your candidates ready for an exam. So we cover mostly around address planning, the dual stack, and most of the things we are all familiar with. And your engineers now sit for the exam, and the ones who pass the work out with the issued IPv6 certificates. This matters for 2 reasons. First, the work is work, I agree, and your engineers come out on the other side able to deploy V6 on their network, having actually worked on the network during the lab session. And second, and this is part that managers in the room also pay attention to, the success creates a verifiable named pool of certified IPv6 engineers in your NDAs, not vendors' engineers, really yours and your engineers. So, for the room 2, which is the manager's part, the management is doing something quite different. They are not going to the core technical thing. It's something way different. We do not teach managers how to configure routers. We teach managers how to commission, govern, budget, procure, and also report on an IPv6 deployment. So we walk through real procurement language. We discuss real RFP clauses, real evaluation rubrics, real risk registers, real KPIs that you can put in front of your PAMSEC or your Director General today. So that's what we do in room 2, more of the managerial activities. And here's the deliverable that comes out of this. And this is the single most important sentence in this section, which I want most of the managers to take note of. Which is, by the end of the kickoff week, every NDA in the cohort has already produced a validated IPv6 action plan for their institution, signed off by the managers in the room, and also aligned with the country context, owned by the NDAs. So when I'm discussing about NDAs, we're talking about the regulators, we're talking about the government network providers, and go. So that's what I mean about the NDAs. That is the ministry, the department, and also the agents. The document is not a marketing brochure. It's the artifact that justifies budgets, secures the executive sponsorship, and gets quoted back to you in your year-end performance review. And it's a thing that you can also bring back home for the kickoff. So for a quick summary, the kickoff is that one event, 1 week, 2 tracks, 2 deliverables. Certified engineers on one side, a validated IPv6 action plan on the other side, both sides of the NDAs, the people who would do the work and the people who would defend the budgets. They all leave the kickoff aligned on the same plan. So that's the whole summary of what the kickoff stage is. Stage 2, as I explained earlier, which is the deployathon stage. So this is where the work actually rolls out in terms of IPv6 deployment. So the central delivery mechanism is in the in-person event, which we call the deployathon. So the deployathon is not a training. It's the whole deployment process. For the training part, we already did that in stage 1, which I explained that's for both room 1 and room 2. So this is direct hands-on assistance to help most of your engineers deploy V6 on their live network with your real devices, with your real traffic. Your team does the work, and what we just do is to sit alongside while they do the work. It's just more like guidance and the things we need to show them the right step in terms of V6 deployment. So your engineers walk through the deployment milestones in 6-week sprints, which is guided by our experts, with the Willies and some other gentlemen. So between the deployathon, as I explained earlier, it's where we have the help desk as one of our ongoing supports. In terms of the deployathon, one of the way we measure the success is not by the attendance. We are measuring success based on the traffic. The target here is about 20% or more of your operational traffic running on native IPv6. So that's the main target that we want to attain, mostly at the end of every deployathon program, which is mostly we're looking at target between the next 6 months. So let's say, for example, we start the program today for the deployathon. And so we're looking at the next 6 months, at least 20% of your traffic is currently on native IPv6. So that is when your government domains show measurable IPv6. You see it first on your V6 monitor, and also the world sees it on their public sources. That is how we know that the deployathon has actually worked. So who's already in? Botswana, we've already done the kickoff program with Botswana last year. We have Guinea-Bissau coming up in August. That's in 2 months. We have Tanzania also coming up in 2 months. That's in August. So they've both signed up. Countries have already signed up. They're ready for their government kickoff program, which is the engineers track and also the managers track. So they're already locked in and see where we can begin from there. And cost is not money. This is not about the money, and which I have to be honest about it. The cost here is not the financial cost. The cost time that we need to focus on is the staff time, your engineers' time, your managers' time. The kickoff week takes engineers and managers out of their day jobs. That is the 5 days. They also need to sit in a room and where we did discuss. Also, the deployathon takes a focus team for several weeks. So you need an executive sponsor, that is your DG, your CIO, your PAMSEC, who has to sign off on the time commitment before the cohort begins. So that's where the real cost is. So that's the engineer's time. The time is actually the real cost, not in terms of funds. But here's the cost of not doing it. Your country stays in the bottom half of every public IPv6 measurements. Your ministries cannot procure IPv6 native IS services. They cannot specify them. Your engineers stay dependent on the vendors who quote you for the work. Your students, on the other side, graduates trained on a version of the internet that the rest of the world have already moved on. And also the procurement specification written in 2028, the ones that will determine African companies that can bid for other government contracts. Those specifications will be written by other countries that did this work in 2026. So we need to take cognizance of that. That is, for us, I would appreciate if we can take full advantage of this in 2026. So by 2027, where we are looking at the next measurements, we are seeing the green patterns on the African continent map. And like I mentioned, our time is the cost, which we can spend today and then have a good results in the coming years. 3 steps that I promised we're going to discuss, which are not vague. There's sequence, and here they are. Step number 1, before we log off this call, we take your readiness check. So that's the bit.ly/v6 check. It doesn't take much of a time, 3 to 5 minutes. You will know exactly where your NDA sits on the scale as the 33 other NDAs that took the test. Secondly, this week, after taking the test, you can forward your tier results to your DG, to your PAMSEC or your CIO. And I've already attached the sentence on the slides where you can also maybe copy that frame and add it to what you want to send to them to see where we currently stand. Then next, you nominate your MDA. You can send us an email via trading@afrinic.net. So you nominate your MDA for the next cohort, just like what Botswana, Guinea-Bissau, and Tanzania did. Then we can proceed from there to have a proper discussion. My colleague Emma will be in touch with you. We'll look out for the email. Then we can start a discussion on how we can come into your country to kickstart the Government Accelerator program. So back to my slide that I begin with, 6.13%, same number that I opened with. I would say, I believe that number will change. And the only question on the table today is, who changes the number? In 2026 and 2027, a handful of countries are going to move decisively on IPv6, which I believe. They're going to certify their engineers. They're going to write their strategies. They're going to deploy. And also by 2028, those countries will be the ones that other countries will call in terms of, we need help in terms of delivery of V6 in our own nation. So those countries will be the ones whose engineers staff our regional deployment. Those countries will be the ones writing the procurement language that everyone else has to comply with. So the question is it going to be your country or my country? So the choice is yours. The choice is in front of us today, and not whether we deploy V6. The question is settled. The choice is whether we are in the cohort that leads the deployment of V6 or the cohort that buys from other leaders. So thank you very much for taking a few minutes of our time. You can take the assessment today by scanning the QR code and also bit.ly/v6 check. To quickly take your readiness check for today, then we go through the results. You'll be sent a copy of the results. We'll go through the results, then we'll reach out to you to see where we stand. If you have any questions, please kindly... Yeah, so Darwin said in Angola in 2019, we're at 0%. Wow, that's a very beautiful testimony coming from Darwin. That's exactly what I spoke about in the last slide. Said, are you going to be the next engineer? Is your MDA going to be the next Ministries that's going to do this push? Or your country is going to be the leader in terms of pushing or writing the rules or the procurement rules or the deployment for V6? So if in the case of Darwin's testimony, he was able to take that bold move for his nation. So the question is, are we going to be the next? So if you have any questions, please do not hesitate to drop the questions. My colleagues are on the call to answer that. Okay, I got a question from Mark. He said he appreciates AFRINIC provided the seminar, but the question is, has AFRINIC contacted all LRRs that have IPv4 and ASN but not IPv6 and asked them why they don't have it? Yes, we do that. Year in, year out, we actually do that exercise. And I can speak to that from my colleague perspective. We do that exercise yearly to reach out to them and said how we can help to implement or push or deploy V6 on the continent. Also, we have call for locales. I know a couple of organizations have already reached out in terms of the deployment program in their country. We have 2 coming up in July, I think, and also in August. There's one in South Africa and also, I think, Cote d'Ivoire next month. So we'll be working on this also as well. Every day, we actually reach out to most of the LRRs to see if they are interested in terms of deploying V6. So could you give more detail about the IPv6 management certification? That is the 36, budgeting, and is Bashir on the call?
I think to John-Arena, you need to clarify your question, whether it's the IPv6 for managers. But basically for the IPv6 for engineers, we have 2 tracks or 2 certifications, the silver and the gold. So the question is the IPv6 for managers, right? But for engineers, we have 2 certifications, silver and gold, and you can find more information on 36.io. That's for engineers. So for managers, this is what Debo was talking about, the Kickstart event, where you have the executives in the same room as the engineers training is happening in parallel. So by the end of the training with executives or the managers, they're going to come up with action plans for the various departments and agencies. And based on those action plans, they earn a certification, the Certified IPv6 Program Manager certification. In terms of budgeting, I think if you're interested, we can send you more details. My colleague Emma can send you more details. But typically it will involve the cost of tickets, hotels, the venue, etc. So I hope I answered your question, Trojanerina.
Thank you so much, Bashir.
Debo,
Yes.
if I may add also for the Gov program, AFRINIC is also sponsoring the engineers certification vouchers, which is worth $100 per person. So the more you send engineers to us, train and certify, and then they can, after that, start their deal. But AFRINIC is paying for all of your engineers free of charge.
Excellent. Thank you so much for that, Emma. Teboho, do I have to apply to join the government in order to use the V6 check website? Not at all. It's a public website. You can actually just check where you are. It's public, so you don't need to apply. But I will encourage you, if you are actually part of the government, I will encourage you to take the readiness check. And you can use this as more like a valid point when you're pitching to your DG or the ministry or your regulators to see where we need to start in terms of V6 deployment within your country. Okay, Mark said that it would be interesting to hear the reasons why they have not gotten IPv6 yet. That's very interesting. I would say in most cases, this is best reason known to most of these LIRs. Some do have it, they've gotten the block, but they're yet to advertise, maybe in terms of or in terms of trainings and co. So we will keep reaching out to most of these LRRs to see how we can help them, because we're always available to help the LRRs in terms of deployment. And our help desk is always open, which is ongoing for every time, any day. You can book a call. The DO engineer will hook up with them to put them through on the steps they need to take. So we will keep doing that. We'll keep up reminding or encouraging most of the LRRs to ensure that they deploy or announce the V6. So when is the next training? I once participated in 2024. Unfortunately, didn't manage to write the exam. If you're referring to the ZV6, but the next one will be, I think, in Q3 or mostly early Q4. That's when we will run an ZV6. I'm not promising, but I think it's in the pipeline to run another 0 to 35 certified program. But for this webinar's sake, it's mostly targeted towards the country level, where you can also, I would also encourage you to push to your regulators or to the country network providers or to the departments that manage the country level network to implement or kickstart this government program on their side. You can also encourage the regulators or the departments that manages the government network to join them and see where you can start this program.
Okay, Debo, sorry. So for Zimbabwe, Tagoi, we've secured a slot for Zimbabwe. So you just check out the emails that we're going to send, and you'll see when is our next workshop for the government program.
Awesome. Okay. Excellent. Any other question? Okay, in the absence of none, we encourage you to also give us a feedback on the webinar and see where an area of improvement and see where we can do better. But the most important one is to take the government readiness check and see how you can also, as an engineer, encourage your governments to kickstart the government IPv6 program on our end. So thank you very much for today. Really appreciate your time out. For everyone who is on the call today, we appreciate you and we hope to light up Africa again. And I would like to see the map to turn into green by 2027. That's actually my wish. My hope and my wish is to see this map turn from red to yellow and from yellow to green. Hopefully by 2027, we will run another check to see that here in 2026, we did this webinar, and here we are in 2027. Most of the red colors, they've turned into green. Yeah. So I appreciate your time out today once again. Thank you very much, everyone, and have a wonderful day and enjoy the rest of your week. Bye.